If you have minor children, anyone under the age of 18 in your home, and you don't have a temporary guardian and a permanent guardian identified in a legal document, that's something I would get. Now, a lot of times people have a permanent guardian, and that's somebody that if the worst case happened, they would raise your children. But a lot of times these permanent guardians don't live in the same state. They don't sometimes live in the same country, and it takes a few days or weeks to reach your child. And so a temporary guardian is something I encourage to have legally documented. Maybe it's a good friend, like a good neighbor, somebody that you're going to trust. And you can put that in writing so that when or if the worst ever occurs, they have a legal right to watch your children. Because just because your kids are like, no, I love my neighbor Sue, they can't do that legally.
Well, good morning, ladies, and welcome to the Women of Fort Mill podcast. I am Leah Williams, and we have such an incredible guest with us here today. I'm so excited. We were talking just a few minutes before we started this, and I cannot wait to unpack the things that this incredible woman has done and is working on in life and business. Tristan Hunkin, founder of Hunkin Law. She's an author of an insightful book, which can't wait to unpack a little bit more with you. She helps families, individuals, and business owners really protect what matters most through so many different avenues, including estate planning, personalized legal strategies, and now author of a book that is going to be released. So Tristan, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So there's so much in your story that we can unpack. You're successful mom, spouse, business owner 2 times over, and you're making quite an impact. Can you share with us just a little bit of your background, this second career, and the impact that it's making, and what made you decide to take this leap and change directions in your career?
Of course. So as you alluded, I'm a second-time career person to be an attorney. About 12 years ago, I was a business teacher to 9th through 12th graders. I didn't intend to ever be a teacher. It was just a family-friendly job. My spouse was deployed during that time. We're a military family. And I ended up loving being a teacher. I was a business professionals advisor. I was the AVID coordinator, director, and the cheer coach for 2 years. So I did a lot of things. But the hardest question my students would always ask me was, Ms. Hunkin, why don't you run your own business? Because that's what I taught. We talked about it every day. And I finally started hearing their encouragement and the questions they asked. And I realized, I probably should go a little bit more for my own goals. So after 3 years, I applied to law school, graduated from Georgetown Law, and I wouldn't be an attorney today if I hadn't been a teacher back then. So I'm forever grateful for that experience. And yeah, go Mavs.
Oh my gosh. Well, that leap of faith when you have a family, military family. My sister's husband was in the Army for many years. And so as an outsider looking in, it's a lot to maintain family connectivity, especially when you're solo parenting a lot of the time. And then to say, okay, I'm going to law school. That's incredible, but it makes sense how your skills and ability to connect through teaching enables you to do that with clients and help them understand what many times feels very complex and intimidating. So your law firm is a little bit different, not only in that it's virtual, but really just the approach you take. Could you explain a little bit more on how you work with clients? Obviously, some of the services that you provide to them, but what makes the experience so different?
Of course. So we are a virtual, or I'm a solo practitioner at this time. I previously had attorneys, then I took time off. I'm a JAG officer as well as a reservist. So sometimes I get called to duty. I know, Leah, I'm all over
gosh. No, my respect bar just keeps on going up. I'm like, who is this woman? She can do it all.
But I am bar licensed in Texas, which we previously lived, North Carolina and South Carolina. So when I went out on my own, I could obviously serve all those states, but how do you do that in like a reasonable way? And because of all the experience and exposure to doing virtual platforms, just like this podcast, people became pretty confident to do it virtually. And now people don't have to drive into the city for an attorney to get solid legal counsel. We can really meet anywhere at any time. And my clients have really enjoyed it. And it's been a great experience.
Well, I mean, I can say just from my business, a client might live 10, 15 minutes away, but sometimes with schedules and kids and all the things,
Right.
we're just like, we're Zooming it today. It's just time is limited and you want to be really intentional with it. So if you can get the same thing done in half the time, because there's no drive time, I mean, that I would be one of those people who would be like, yes, I would like to do everything virtual with you. So I think that's so incredible. Well, I mean, in this process and change and career, just through experiences in life, can you share a little bit about this book that is launching in October? Is that right?
Yes, October 1st. So
Okay.
very excited. I started writing, it's called Regifting Grace. I started writing it about 4 years ago. And that was during, if you remember, the chaos of COVID and the kind of the political unrest that was occurring.
Yes.
And it was really at its peak. And I started seeing a lot of division, like everyone did, more than just the high level, but it trickled into everyone's personal life. So coworkers and friends and family were just so much pricklier and harder with each other. And I started to also participate in that. And I thought, that's not how I want to interact. How can I take a step back? So I started writing just for myself on how to hold myself accountable in the way I want to come present into relationships. And it really developed into something a little bit more. And then this past year, I sort of went through another sort of hard thing where I thought, I should go back to that book and open it up again. And now it's really turned into something pretty special for me that I'm really excited about. Grace and accountability to me go hand in hand. It's one of those things that a lot of times we hear, just give grace, just give grace. But then people are thinking, well, that kind of runs me over. I would like some grace too. So in this book, it kind of gives you the ability to say, well, grace without accountability makes surface level relationships. If you want something deep, if the relationship matters enough, then you should be able to have a harder conversation of accountability and then be willing to give grace when the situation has resolved. And that's what it goes through all the different interpersonal relationships that we all deal with. So.
Well, thinking back to COVID, it feels like so long ago, but it really wasn't. But it impacted how we communicate with people. I mean, I remember sitting in my home office doing back-to-back thousands of Zoom meetings and just seeing the change in people. Being isolated is never good. And I think for some people, they became closer because they actually started to spend more time together. Parents started to spend more time with their children. But then it also had the opposite impact where people started spending more time and they were not good communicators. And it resulted in lots of family law attorneys getting very busy over the next couple of years after that. So
unfortunately,
when we were talking before, you mentioned that different chapters focus on different kinds of relationships. And for those of us that are parents, so much of where our energy goes between our mental energy and then where we want to spend our time, we want to be the best parents. I've never met someone that just said, I don't care about whether I'm a good parent. We all want to be there and show up for our children. Is that something that you dig into a little bit in the book? And I'm asking for all the working moms out there that are thinking, wow, Tristan is an all-star mom. Look at all the things that she has done and the ability to still maintain good relationships with your children. I mean, that's incredible. So is that something that you talk about a little bit in the book?
I do. I want to disclaim because I feel like sometimes as moms and just people in general, we really like to look in another person's cup and we say, oh, mine doesn't look like that. But we're all so unique and we come from such different backgrounds and we have different expectations for ourselves and what we want. And so what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not ever work for me. So the book is very broad in the sense of it's not a strict, if you don't do this, you're going to fail as a mom. It's not like that at all.
Right.
It's absolutely very loving in the sense that we are all going to fail in some respects. And so that's really where accountability comes in, of holding ourselves and saying, you know what, I do deserve grace as a mom, but I could have done that better. And if I start accepting that I could have done that better, then I actually love giving myself grace because I feel like, you know what, I am doing my best. I'm showing up. And when I fail, I apologize to my kids. I apologize to my spouse for not chipping in more or whatever the situation might be. Because for me, I couldn't do it without my husband. I give him a lot of credit that the first half of my kid's life was very much me, solo parenting. And this back end has definitely shifted the dynamics. Not that I'm gone or anything, but he has really stepped up and I couldn't do all the things I do without a supportive spouse. So I am very thankful for that.
Well, it does go to realizing how important the people that you're around and supporting your journey, like how impactful the people you choose to surround yourself with are. And of course, we all choose our spouse. So that's usually the number one person if we have a significant other. But the people that you choose to have in your circle as you move through this journey really impacts how it helps mold and shape how you see life, how you show up. And that accountability piece, I feel like it's so common to go to either extreme, to either say, okay, everyone's just doing their best and this is just how I am, or this is, I didn't have good parents myself, so that's why I'm not as good of a parent, or just hardcore, oh, I'm always feeling I have to do better. There is that right in between where you're pulling the best. Is there a quick example of what that looks like, say with a significant other, or say relationship with your child, an example of combining both of those, grace and accountability?
I would say that's hard, but I would think, well, one thing, let me back up and say that when you're giving accountability, it varies depending on the relationship. So spouse, child, yourself, those are pretty high level accountabilities, in my opinion. Those people are going to be with you forever. So building foundational relationships is important. It's worth digging into the hard conversation. Some of these other people in your lives, even sometimes it might even be friends, maybe they aren't close enough that it's worth having the level of accountability. And the book kind of goes through that. So for example, I'm the president of our HOA. So pray for me. I'm retiring soon though. I've done it for 3 years. Somebody else will do it soon. But that position requires a lot of accountability. And so, some people can be very difficult to deal with, but while I say, hey, we're not going to speak to my team that way, we're not going to speak to me that way, I don't lose sleep over it because they're just someone. They've never been to my house. I've never been to theirs. And so you just sort of let that roll off. You give grace. Maybe they had a bad day. It stinks to deal with the HOA. I get it. If a friend disrespects me, or my son disrespects me, or my husband that's a different level of conversation. That's when I want to pause and say, I'm supposed to be someone you value. I'm supposed to be someone you love. And I'm trying to give you respect and give you love. Let's pause and figure out why it is that you're having. A lot of times, whatever the behavior isn't even the root. So the conversation surrounding accountability helps you realize, oh, I didn't realize that I said I would cook breakfast and I didn't cook breakfast this morning. And so that's why you're a little disappointed in me today. Having those conversations, they really do matter. Validates people. And when you validate someone, it is an enormous wave of relief over our body because we don't feel like we're crazy. We don't feel like we're unheard. You feel very seen. You feel very valued. You can't stay in that state of I'm mad. But the moment you feel seen and heard, then you do get to feel safe to move forward and say, okay, I see why you didn't get to cook breakfast and I see why that happened. We'll do something different this time. And taking that time, it might feel like you don't have the time in the day, but in my opinion, it's the most important thing you could possibly do, especially as a mom. My goal as a mom is when they're 30, 40 years old, my sons are willingly calling me to be a part of their life. There's a lot of friends, even, that just don't have that really strong relationship. Being an adult child is a responsibility, not a privilege. And I want my kids to not feel that way about us. So.
Wow. What you said, the core relationships that are worth the most energy. And I think a lot of us feel like energy is currency and where are we depositing it? And we can't possibly deposit it everywhere, especially in the same quantity. So it's almost like doing a life audit, a people audit to say, okay, who are my foundational core people and how am I intentionally depositing the best energy I have to build these relationships? Because these little humans or my spouse or, whoever it is worth this currency, this energy so that you do have that lifelong relationship. And I love how focused you are on what's the real reason behind what that person said, or what's the real reason behind why I'm feeling this way. And usually it's not about the thing, the small annoyance or the little thing that someone said. It's deeper. And a lot of us, sometimes we just don't go deeper to find out what's the problem and resolve it. Because most of these things can really be resolved when you're willing to take the time.
Absolutely.
I can't wait until October 1st. And this book feels so relevant and so needed because so many of us, we have aspirations and we're very driven. And sometimes we just want a little bit of guidance to say, okay, need a little bit of help or support. How do I do this the best way possible? So I can't wait. I am just so impressed by all that you're able to do on the business side with helping and families and business owners. Can you unpack that a little bit, helping people plan for the future. Obviously, that's a lot of the conversations that I'm having as a financial planner. I'm probably the biggest advocate for estate planning attorneys. I work with a ton of business owners, and making these decisions now are so critical to their future success. Could you share a little bit about this part of your life and how you work with clients and help them protect things that matter most?
Absolutely. Estate planning actually came to Hunkin Law's practice. I was a business law practice area primarily first, and then I realized how much the two really overlap. You know, you take care of your business and then you also take care of your private life. And so I took a lot of courses. Obviously, I had my bar license, but it's a very unique practice area. So I took additional courses, made sure I really knew how to best serve clients. And I started estate planning. And it's been one of the best experiences. I love serving others. I love guiding and helping people through, especially challenging times. If you can plan early, I couldn't stress it enough, because having to sit with an 88-year-old is much harder conversation for them to make these very right at the threshold decisions. That's a much harder thing on a person to think through and have to sit in versus a couple in their 40s and 50s who have their assets and they're trying to move things into a trust and they're getting their kids covered with guardianship. And there's this sense of hope. They're doing something responsible. They're doing something almost joyful. I feel safe. I feel good. Look what I did for my kids. It's an entirely different planning experience. And you're not panic planning because you've had the time to really think through hard conversations. You're still making really hard decisions, but they are 40, 50 years away. So you feel comfortable and clarity making them now. And so I can't stress enough, you're not too young to plan. I would strongly encourage people to do it.
One of the things that I find in having these conversations with people around planning is that attorneys and law and the legal realm sometimes feels very intimidating because people see things on TV, they hear about these terrible experiences that people have. And so sometimes they don't take action that is so critical for them because they have this lens that they see the legal realm through. So helping people understand that if control is important to you, or your children are important, or avoiding the court system through probate, or, all of these things that we don't want to happen can really be easily, a lot of them can be prevented just by relatively simple actions now. So what would you say, top one or two things to female audience? A lot of them have families, whether they have, another misconception is that you have to have billions of dollars to do estate planning. What are a couple of things that you would say to women? You have to do these two things. If you're thinking about your family's future, if you want to safeguard what you're building for them in your life and business, what are a couple things you would encourage them to do?
I would encourage, if you have minor children, anyone under the age of 18 in your home, and you don't have a temporary guardian and a permanent guardian identified in a legal document, that's something I would get. Now, a lot of times people have a permanent guardian, and that's somebody that if the worst case happened, they would raise your children. But a lot of times these permanent guardians don't live in the same state. They don't sometimes live in the same country, and it takes a few days or weeks to reach your child. And so a temporary guardian is something I encourage to have legally documented. Maybe it's a good friend, like a good neighbor, somebody that you're going to trust. And you can put that in writing so that when or if the worst ever occurs, they have a legal right to watch your children. Because just because your kids are like, no, I love my neighbor Sue, they can't do that legally. They're not allowed to leave your kids with Sue. They got to take them until the permanent guardian comes forward, or a family member. And depending on your situation, that could be a day, 2 days or more for your child. So that's a huge thing. Getting those guardianship documents in place, very, very critical. And then if you are a homeowner and you have some level of assets, this is obviously a powerful podcast with a lot of really amazing women on here trying to build great futures, and that includes strong wealth. And as you mentioned, that doesn't mean a billionaire. If you're a homeowner, homes are a huge asset that's worth protecting and not having it go through probate, which is that court that can take a good chunk of change of your estate. And it's so long. It's several months long, sometimes a year to get through that process. So save your family the aggravation. Let them keep all the benefits of the things that you've built in your life. Don't share it with the state. That's really what a trust can do for you. Yeah. So get a trust, get your guardianship in place.
Tristan, you are only the second attorney that has mentioned, and I have the documents for temporary guardianship, but until someone brought it to my attention, I had never heard any other attorney. So you are only the second one that has mentioned the temporary guardianship. So, say couples in car accident, incapacitated, can't take care of children. The lifelong guardian is in Virginia for our son. So, who takes care of him in those hours or days maybe? So I think that is such a critical component to at least be thinking about these things that are hard to imagine. But what's the alternative is that there is no plan in place. And we know as moms, we like to have a plan and like to know that the most important people in our life are going to be okay, especially our children. So gosh, Tristan, this is so impactful, not only on the planning side for moms and women as they're thinking about building these futures and they're working so hard, some of these important things that they need to put in place. But then as they're building these relationships that make up our life, how do we enhance them and make them as good and strong as possible? So you have just added just one big value bomb this morning. And I'm so grateful that you were able to come on. If women want to get in touch with you, whether it be because they have questions and want to start pursuing some of the planning aspects that you can help them with on the legal side, as well as how do they make sure they know about book launch? How do they get their hands on a book October 1st? How can they get in touch with you?
So they can reach out to hunkinlaw.com. All our contact and email is at hunkinlaw.com. And that's Hunkin like Dunkin' Donuts, but with an H.
Okay.
So Hunkin Law. And for the book, I have an Instagram page that's it's a little sillier. It's not an attorney's page. It's more just my personal side of talking about these hard interpersonal topics. But it's in a light way. Some of it's heavy, some of it's more silly. But if they'd want to join that journey, you can find me at tristan.hunkin with the Instagram. And I'd love to have people share how it impacts. And the book releases October 1st.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I know it has impacted me from our email correspondence. I already put it on my calendar, October 1st. So I can't wait for the book to come out, and we'll make sure to share it on Instagram. And ladies, if you found value in this episode, share it with another woman, a fellow mom. Tristan's story is so empowering and encouraging. And we would love for you to share all these encouraging strategies that you've lived in your life. I mean, you've done so much despite a lot of challenges. And I think as women, we really need to rally around each other and support as much as we can. So follow Tristan's page. If you have questions, reach out through her website. We'll make sure to put all of her information in the show notes so that you can contact her. And thank you for spending your time with the Women of Fort Mill podcast this morning. We are so grateful for you. Please like and share. It allows us to bring on more incredible guests like Tristan. So thank you again so much for your time, Tristan, and we will hope to see you soon.
Thank you.